Applebee's new grilled cheese cheeseburger is so cheesy.
Want to try the cheese pull?
Yeah, I'll take this side.
Wow, now this is a cheese pull. Sorry.
I can't believe you get this and another entree like the chicken parmesan fettuccine.
Plus an appetizer for just $25.
Excuse me. This is incredible.
That's why I always come to Applebee's for the 2 for $25 deal.
What?
Limited time price participation and selection may vary. Tax and gratuity excluded.
It's still going.
You make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. We're a month into the football season, and guys like rookie tight end Tyler Warren are taking the league by storm. Every week, I hop into my PrizePicks app to check his projections to see his upcoming matchup. It's incredibly easy and fun. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. It is not Kyle Borganoni. It is your host for today's show, Matthew Betz. And to break down this Week 6 DFS main slate, I brought on none other than Rich Hribar of Sharp Football. Rich, how's it going today, man? How's the NFL season treating you? Thank you for being here. I'm excited to break it down with you today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are going well. You know, it's one of those, we're in that weird period where, like we were talking a little bit before the show, it still feels new, but then you look at it, it's like, well, we're a third of the way through the regular season, but we're still in like the gathering period because, you know, there's been so many player injuries and guys have been out. I mean, that's your lane. You've been extra busy
goodness, man,
to start the year. But
yeah, last week Kyle and I talked about that. He was like, you know, you're only here because of the injuries in the NFL, and I was like, well, that is true. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality.
Yeah, you know, I had that. I just did some back of the napkin, just kind of tallying because I do like an intro for my article every week, and I was just like, oh, after Hampton went out, it's like, well, how many top guys have actually been out? And I did the math. I was like, oh, 14 of the top 48 guys, which is like the first 4 rounds of like a 12-team league, have either been put on IR or missed a game. I was like, this, you know, I threw that note out there, and then people ran with it. But yeah, so you've been busy, but it's kept everything kind of like the stat gathering part, or like figuring out what these teams are, and like kind of a nebulous situation because teams are adjusting so much on both sides of the ball. It's not just offense. Like the defensive injuries have been just as prevalent. The offensive line injuries have been just as prevalent. So it's not just these skill players who are fantasy football. It's factoring in just like all these moving parts we've had these opening 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, the defensive injuries, like you talked about, they've been crucial. Like, look at the Ravens, right? I mean, that team, they've got one more game this week against the Rams. Then they go on bye. Like, that team desperately needs their bye week like you would not believe. So there's a couple other teams on the slate we'll talk about today dealing with some key injuries, and we'll break down all these games. We'll talk cash. We'll do some prop picks. We'll do all those things. I did want to let the people know I have a photo. I have proof from Kyle. He's on vacation. He sent me poolside sipping a Surfside. So humble brag. Is just, humble brag, just shoving it in our face. But I've got Rich here to help break it down. Rich, let people know like where they can find all your content and stuff. So I'm always terrible at that when I'm the host, by the way. I want to do it at the top of the show before the end when I forget. So let people know where they can find you, like on Twitter, all your podcasts, your written work, all that stuff.
Hey, you can go to Sharp Football Analysis. That's where I write up every player and every game every week. It's called The Worksheet. Just break down all the games, player rankings. Every weekend I share my actual player pool that I'm playing in DFS that weekend. So my core plays, my tournament picks, my game stacks, all that stuff we share. I'm going to share some of that with you guys too today, obviously. But all that stuff's on the site every week. You know, I'm at Twitter still, or X, former Twitter, at Lord Reeves, and same thing at Blue Sky, the Lord Reeves as well. So you can find me on all those.
Perfect. I love it. I wanted to let everybody know, promo code DFS Pod if you want to hop in the DFS Pass. As Rich said, we still have, 2/3 of the season left to go, and we go through the playoffs. So, I mean, we're not even really a third of the way in if you include the playoffs. So I love those playoff slates too, and it's, the 2-gamers, the 4-gamers, stuff like that. But obviously, we have a lot of time before then. This is a 10-game slate. Rich, let's jump into our cash picks.
Yeah.
today.
I'm a big afternoon slate only guy too. So
there you go.
If you're a big fan of like the Thanksgiving, people always talk about how much they love Thanksgiving slate every year, and I'm like, well, how come you never play the afternoon slate? It's the same thing.
I think that I do love the Thanksgiving slate. I think there's just something about it where you can watch each game in isolation.
Yeah.
And then, adjust your lineup like as the day goes on and as you're, around friends and family, all the good food. So I do love that Thanksgiving slate. It's one of my favorite every year. But yeah, let's jump into these cash picks.
Straight cash, homie.
All right, Rich, let's set the table here at quarterback on DraftKings. Now, I do want to give a kind of quick disclaimer. The quarterback pool this week is interesting, right? Because when you just get like top level down, it's a 10-game slate. The island games for this week are actually really fun, really exciting. But because of some of those island games, the elite rushing mobile quarterbacks are not really on this slate. Like you think about, Thursday Night Football, Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, not on the main slate. Lamar Jackson, not going to play because of injury. We got Bo Nix and Justin Fields over in London. And then Pat Mahomes, who's been rushing like a maniac, is on Sunday Night Football. Unbelievable game against the Lions. And then Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, not on the main slate. And Kyler, we're not sure about, but has not practiced yet this week because of his foot injury. So just top level, like that's kind of what we're looking at here. A lot of pocket passers and maybe some like, plus rushers, but not the true elite runners. So setting the stage, that's kind of what we're looking at here. At quarterback, Rich, I mean, can we please talk about Drake May? This man, I've been so, vocal about how much I love this guy, support him. I see him just ball out on prime time against the Bills. He's 5,900 taking on the Saints. He's 7,800 over on FanDuel. Obviously, the matchup here is pretty good. What do you think about Drake May in the spot if you're looking at cash games?
Yeah, he's the guy that kind of checks the boxes in terms of like salary, archetype of having some mobility, and then the passing has been there. I went into Sunday night as like waiting for the test because like the opening month for the Patriots got the reason why I was so invested in Drake May, like a lot of people, was like the opening schedule was so good, and then I was like, all right, he's passed the opening test, he's delivering us fantasy points against all these matchups that we want him to score fantasy points again. And I was like, all right, I just want to see how he stacks up now against Buffalo, and the Patriots in general, right? And like they win that game. And Drake May didn't score a lot of fantasy points on Sunday night, but he passed the test of like, it looks like he's ready to make that step, right? To being a quarterback that makes that jump this year. And then you talk about now we get him at home, a favorite against the Saints. The downfield passing's been there. Over the past 4 weeks, we've seen Josh McDaniels do a lot more creativity in the offense. He's now run motion on 54% of his dropbacks the past 4 weeks, play action on 31%. He leads the NFL in he's fourth in quarterback rating with pre-snap motion, and then using play action. He has 8.1 yards per pass attempt, 117 rating. The Saints are a team that don't put pressure on the quarterback, and they're allowing 16.3 passing points per game. That's 25th to quarterbacks. So everything kind of just sets up here for Drake May of all the boxes you would kind of look for.
Love it. And yeah, thinking about kind of like we talked about without those elite rushers on this slate, like obviously May can do that. And when you look at this Saints matchup, they have kind of struggled a little bit with some of these mobile quarterbacks. Jackson Dart just last week, 55 yards on the ground on 7 carries. Josh Allen, 45 and a score. Even Kyler Murray, a few weeks ago, 7 for 38. So I think that rushing could come back a little bit here. Obviously, Steph Diggs playing well. Hunter Henry always there as a security blanket. So love this spot for Drake May. I also have on the list this week potentially, I want to get your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence, who had quite a night on Monday. It was the full T-Law experience, right? You saw some amazing plays. You saw some boneheaded, turnovers and delay of game in his own building. You saw the, of course, game-winning rushing touchdown, which was just like the most Mr. Magoo play of all time. It was the full Trevor Lawrence experience in primetime.
Made Chris Jones delete his social accounts.
More importantly, deleted Chris Jones' social accounts. Trevor Lawrence, 5,100 on DraftKings, very, very cheap tag. Obviously, that came out before Monday Night Football, taking on the Seahawks, who on the surface are one of the best defenses in the league. However, they are one of those cluster injury situations that we need to talk about. We'll preview the game here in a little bit, but they've got some key injuries in the secondary. What are your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence here in this spot? Nice total, 47.5, taking on the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, it's an interesting game because of all the pieces that are moving in it. Mike McDonald sound kind of skeptical on like who they would get back this week. Even last week they entered the game missing DeMarcus Lawrence, Devin Witherspoon, and Julian Love. Reek Woolen leaves the game with a concussion. Derek Hall, edge rusher, leaves the game. He's going to miss a couple weeks. I think he had an ankle injury. So they could be down, five starters, coming into this game, which opens the door for a cheaper quarterback. The way Lawrence got there for fantasy football on Monday is not really sustainable, or he hasn't shown it. He's always flashed like moments where he is mobile, but then like he's not a consistent week to week runner. So the fact that he scored like really the crux of his fantasy points on the 2 rushing touchdowns and then the rushing, also he's run against every time they played Spags. He's run on the Chiefs every game, like pretty consistently. So you have that kind of going for you. So it's like hard to roll that over. He's a guy that's had a couple good matchups early in the year. We haven't seen like the passing really be there as much of an anchor. But if Seattle's missing all those core injuries, I can kind of get there on him. We're going to talk about this game in bulk too. I kind of like the other quarterback a little bit more in terms of stability than Lawrence. But if the Seahawks are going to be missing all those players at this price point, I can definitely see where we can get to Trevor Lawrence being a more attractive piece come Sunday.
For sure. And yeah, like you said, we'll talk about Darnold in this spot here in a few minutes as well. Any other quarterbacks on your list for cash games this week, or you want to move to running back?
The only other guy I have like right for my initial cash game stuff is Dak Prescott. He's just on such a heater. And we have this matchup against Carolina. We know what a Gyro Vero does. Like he's one of these guys that defensive play callers that just is very static. He plays his defense. He doesn't really adjust for opponents. The Cardinal Panthers, I was called the Cardinals, the Carolina Panthers, just love to stick in that stock cover 3. They're 3rd in the league in rate of cover 3 again this year. Dak Prescott has absolutely just crushed single high stuff all year. Cover 3, he's got 123 rating on the year, 83% completion rate, a league high 5 touchdowns against cover 3. And we've also seen the Panthers, they started the year kind of good. They were one of those teams that Trevor Lawrence faced though in the opening of the year. Whereas like, oh man, is this team like actually turning it on a little bit defensively against the pass? And then we've seen the past 2 weeks, Drake May, 23 fantasy points, Tua, 23 fantasy points last week. So Dak Prescott's another guy I would still kind of be in consideration in my cash game pool this week.
Yeah, he is playing out of his mind right now. And then when you consider like 0 defensive support and also no CeeDee Lamb, just adding context to how well he's played, like truly MVP caliber type stuff. So yes, I love Dak this week. I think for cash builds, like it kind of just depends on what value we might get, later today and then in terms of throughout the weekend. That's the only thing on the price tag on Dak, but I do love him in tournaments.
Not to completely cut you off there. Sorry about that.
You're good.
But we should have talked about before you're leading. So we just, we're talking like, the cash game pieces, but this is the first slate. And this happens every year in DFS. Like the pricing's always soft to open the year. I think it's because they want like new people to come play DFS and make it easier. Hey, build the super teams. You can get Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey on all your teams, right? And this is the first week where pricing on both sites has actually tightened up. A lot of players' pricing went up, even if they haven't been performing. So this is the first week where it's like, you can't just jam in all the great dudes this week. Like if you want to play Puka Nacua, it's very hard to play Puka Nacua with Jonathan Taylor, with Christian McCaffrey this week, where we really haven't had those restrictions in previous weeks.
No, that's a great point. It kind of has been like, let's plug those guys in and we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. There are some decisions to make on these cash slates, which is what I prefer. Like I like to have these difficult decisions where it's not just a 1v1 in cash, and if you pick the wrong guy, you're out. This week there are decisions to make. That said, at running back, for me, it is not a decision with Christian McCaffrey, who is a wide receiver 1. I mean, his role right now is just absurd. And we'll get clarity on the Niners injury situation throughout the weekend. But obviously, we're not projecting Kittle back this week. Ayuk still not ready to come back from the ACL. Sounds like no Ricky Pearsall. We'll see on Juwan Jennings. But basically, all of that has led to Christian McCaffrey having an unbelievable role as a pass catcher, seeing over 10 targets a game. Now you get a Bucs defense that invites opponents to throw. The Niners have struggled to run the football. And, I think it's probably going to be Mac Jones again this week. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny. Kyle Shanahan is like, let Mac cook. He's like, let him go. So in this spot, we just saw, Sam Darnold have a nice day passing the football. I think this is another clean spot for the Niners to throw the ball again. McCaffrey, to me, this is a tough kind of coin flip between him and Jonathan Taylor. I think I lean CMC at the top. Do you have a take on JT versus CMC? And obviously, you probably can't go wrong. I lean the PPR upside of McCaffrey.
Yeah, I do too for this particular just individual matchup. Jonathan Taylor is also he's 10-5 on FanDuel, which is like the site you always want to play him on.
For sure.
he's 10. They aren't playing around. Like it's like they said, like the pricing's gone up this week. It's even on Christian McCaffrey's even 9.5 over there. But that $1,000 is like pretty significant this week. We talked about some of the pricing and just trying to be able to fix. Like we don't have like a lot of really like cheap like pay down receivers or necessarily the pay down running backs we have, and we'll see what manifests. Unless you really like one of these Chargers guys, we don't have one of these. Because we had like a week where we got to play Rico last week when Rachaad White. We had a Jordan Mason week where he was chalky. It's not really on the board this week, so we've got to kind of do a little bit of maneuvering where we have to pay for either like two like 6K, like mid fives, like 7K running backs, like around one of these guys. So I do think that the salary difference for McCaffrey from Jonathan Taylor does swing me a little bit towards McCaffrey. And then the Bucks, they blitz so much, and the ball's gonna have to come out so fast this week. They're not a good target for rushing production, but that's not what CMC's been doing anyways.
Right.
He's the RB34 in rushing points per game. But he would be the wide receiver 6 in receiving points per game. So you gotta have that marriage.
Ridiculous on a full PPR site. Yeah. McCaffrey, I think, more likely to hit the 100-yard
like you said,
receiving bonus this week than the rushing bonus. But yeah, CMC looks strong at the top. Like you mentioned, the 6K range does look intriguing this week. I don't want to gloss over any of the other names kind of in that 7K-ish range, but when you're looking at, like you said, how to build on this slate for cash, you're probably going to need at least one of these 6K type guys. So let's talk about Javonte against the Carolina Panthers, and then Rico, who of course has revenge on his mind after going crazy last week against the Cowboys. Rico does get, of course, a pricing upgrade after his incredible performance. 5,800 on DraftKings. He's 6,600 on FanDuel. Both of those are nice tags for me. Any issues with playing them in the same cash lineup? Do you have a preference between the two? What are your thoughts on those guys?
In cash games, no. Maybe in like a tournament setting, you wouldn't want to. You typically get the inverse correlation between these guys, but I think that the pricing makes sense, especially from a cash game stance, just in terms of volume. Javonte Williams has been awesome this year. Like he's been like the turn back the clock guy, or like just get it back, like recoiling, like the J.K. Dobbins of this year. I mean, and it's not that he's even just running hot. Like he's been efficient and in expected scoring. He's the RB5 in expected points, so he's not even like he's an outlier where like you can kind of look at him at this point of the season and be like, this is a clear sell high, right? Like Travis Etienne's kind of running that way, where like, and we saw last week him kind of come back where he didn't get the touchdown and some of the floor was kind of exposed. But Javonte is getting all this work, and he checks the box. He has 3 top 6 scoring weeks so far. The only other running backs that do that are Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, the two guys like we were just hemming and hawing about paying $10K for. Like we get a little price discount. We got a guy that's shown just as much ceiling this season, and in a spot too against Carolina. They did play the run well last week against Devin A-Chain, but they're still 18th in rushing yards per game to running backs, 25th in yards to carry, 20th in points per touch. So he's definitely on the board. And then Dowdle is just the cheap value play, and Dallas is actually a even worse matchup than Carolina is. Like Dallas is 27th in total yards to backfields. They're 28th in points per touch allowed to running backs. 31% of all running back runs against Dallas have gone for a first down or touchdown. It's the highest rate in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to get away from these guys as saying, like, from a cash game perspective in the salaries, like these are two guys that are definitely going to be like right there as core plays.
For sure. It makes a ton of sense. And like you said, I'm cool with playing them in the same cash lineup, just getting that median outcome, follow the volume, follow the touches, especially at that salary. Another name I'll throw out in the 6K range, Rachaad White is in play. I always struggle with Rachaad White because, full honesty, I do have like a bias. Like he's not that good of a runner, but he is great as a pass catcher. Baker is just a madman out there, and he's throwing at an unbelievable rate. And when you think about, how he scores his points, especially if you're talking about a full PPR site like DraftKings, catching 4 or 5 passes is in the range of outcomes most weeks for Rachaad White when he's in this lead role. Played 80% of the snaps last week. Obviously got the goal line touches as well over Sean Tucker. So he's a guy that I generally try to like fade in tournaments, but for cash, again, 6K fits kind of that pricing we're looking for this week. He is also, relatively speaking, a better value over on FanDuel where he's just 6,800. So definitely have him in my player pool this week. Any other names you want to throw out at the running back position for cash games?
Not for cash games, but we'll have a few more to play. I like the Rachaad White call too for the same boat. And this, we saw this last year. What happened is that when Bucky Irving missed time, it still was. I know a lot of people want Sean Tucker to be a thing, but
I want Sean Tucker to be a thing.
Yeah, but it's going back 2 years now. He just completely has dominated touches when Bucky Irving has missed time.
Yeah, for sure. It makes a ton of sense. At wide receiver, like you said, normally it's like, all right, we're jamming Puka, we're jamming CMC, and we'll figure it out. There are decisions to make on the slate. If you're going to run optimals on this slate, it's actually kind of tough to fit Puka in those builds. Now, if you want to say, I know better, we're getting 10 catches here, it's the Ravens, they've got all these injuries in the secondary and play him, I totally get it. It is kind of tough to fit him on this slate. That said, I don't know if you need us to tell you he's always a good play.
Right.
JSN, is basically $1,000 cheaper, and I kind of called him like diet Puka right now. Like his peripherals are all just off the charts. He's not seeing the same raw target totals because of the pass volume overall from Sam Darnold, but when he throws, like it's going to JSN, and now you get a bit of a pass funnel defense here in the Jaguars. So do you have issues coming off Puka for cash games in favor of JSN? How are you handling kind of the top of the wide receiver pricing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think because you're going to have the pricing to pick, like you have to choose kind of one, either do you want to play Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, or Puka Nacua? It's very hard to do both. And I do lean towards the still paying for the running back. I think there's a pretty deep still pool of wide receivers this week that are viable. I also too just don't know how much the Rams are going to be pushed. Now Puka's going to get his regardless. This is just us pulling just very small straws. And then the other flip side of this is we're expecting Seattle to have to throw more in this game. They're road underdogs. We saw last week, because everyone's talked about all the great efficiency metrics from JSN, right? Well, guess what? When we finally got to see last week when Sam Darnold had to drop back 34 times, we got to see what it meant for a fantasy ceiling. And I think we have another game environment like that where the Seahawks are going to have to throw. They're going to be pushed to throw 30 plus times. And that makes JSN, especially at his price point, very appealing. We've seen the Jaguars also give up really spike weeks to two of the better receivers they faced. Jamar Chase had 14 for 165 against them. Nico Collins, 8 for 104. So I do like JSN a lot this week, anticipating by the implied game script that Seattle's going to have to be pushed a little more this week.
Yeah, for sure. Like you talked about that, where they're pushed in the game script and also the matchup. Jacksonville's second in rush success rate allowed, 21st in dropbacks success rate. They also just made a trade at the cornerback position, so we'll see if they can work Greg Newsome in there. Yeah, losing Tyson Campbell. So we'll see what that does, but definitely a clean spot here for JSN. Then you think about kind of, okay, how are we building? We're probably dropping down into the low 6, high 5 to low 5K range, and I'm going to list a couple guys that I have on my list for cash games. Tedero McMillan. Please, Bryce Young, throw this man a touchdown. The volume has been there. Finding the end zone is not. Stephon Diggs has seen a 40+% target share in back-to-back games. We just talked about that spot. For Drake May, he's 5,800 taking on the Saints. And then Chris Olave, who's just always in the cash game conversation because you know what you're getting in terms of PPR volume, but he's always going to underperform, most weeks given the quarterback situation. But those are the guys that I have on my list kind of in that range. Any names that jump out to you? Any thoughts on those three wide receivers?
Yeah, Diggs is the standout for me in pricing because of the Sunday night game. If he has that game in Sunday afternoon, his pricing isn't what it is. But the fact that we got to stay grandfathered in because they played at night, we get to roll him back. And the Saints are another team we target. I mean, they're 24th in points allowed per game to opposing wide receiver ones. So he just checks what we want. Obviously, you don't have to stack in cash, but he fits with the Drake May stuff and easy builds too. So love Stephon Diggs. On board with the other guys you named. The only other two I'll say from a cash game perspective that stand out, one would be Jalen Waddle, just because of the consistency that we know Mike McDaniel gets the football to his best players. We saw in the first game without Tyreek Hill, he had a 27% target share, 51% of the air yards. That was his highest rate in a game since the last time Tyreek Hill missed a game in 2023. So definitely look at him. And the Chargers, because on the surface, people are like, well, the Chargers have a good defense, but they're 21st in points allowed to wide receiver ones. Cortland Sutton, 6 for 118 and 1. Debo Samuel last week, 896 and 1. Jacoby Myers, 6 for 68, kind of moderate. Hollywood had 10 for 99. And then a never fun pick that no one ever really is ever excited to pick, but I think fits this week because of terms of salary and opportunity, especially in that Olave zone. I actually think I almost think he's a better play than Olave actually too, would be Michael Pittman. who never gets a lot of love, but we've seen now that he's wide receiver 18 in target share. He also has a higher target share against zone coverage than man coverage. It's like a 5% difference. Arizona, super high under Jonathan Gannon, play a lot of shell coverage. They're not aggressive. So you're never like excited to play Michael Pittman, but I think for all the reasons that people want to play Chris Olave, Michael Pittman checks those boxes, and he actually scored some touchdowns this year.
He did. We love touchdowns on this show. He's 5,400 on context on DraftKings. I thought you were going to say Kendrick Bourne. That's what you were going to say play him over Chris Olave.
We're waiting, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, we've really gotten here. Like Kendrick Bourne at 5K might be a better play than Chris Olave. He was incredible in that Thursday night game. But yeah, we'll see what happens here with San Francisco. Bookmark those guys for later on in the weekend, and we'll figure it out from there. Let's move it to tight end real quick. I would love to spend up for Tyler Warren and Trey McBride and all these guys because of how the pricing works, as we talked about. I do think this is one of those old school weeks where like you're probably going to have to save money somewhere in your lineup. We'll talk about defense here in a minute. At tight end, I've kind of thought about this as more of like the second tier for me in cash games. Looking at Tucker Kraft at 4,700, the Bengals cannot stop any tight ends. We saw Sam Laporta run wild last week. I think it was 92 yards and a score. And then I also think Michael Mayer is like a totally fine punt it off and just take your 6 points and kind of move on. In cash games, he's 3,100. We're expecting Brock Bowers to miss again. And Mayer was practicing in full this week off of the concussion. So taking on the Titans. Any thoughts on those two guys? Any other tight ends on your list for cash?
Love Tucker Kraft. Absolute demon. Just the yak monster. Even with the bye, he has one fewer yard after the catch than the league leader at tight end, which is Tyler Warren, but he only has one fewer yard after the catch than him. Tight ends have 28% of the receptions against the Bengals, the fifth highest rate. We just hope that there's going to be enough passing volume, for the Packers side, but I think there will be. I think there's a lot of things that are going to be pro Packers. I'm sure we'll talk about some more Packers guys along the way. I like the punt call. We have a couple of punt options if you want, like Hunter Long is min price too, if you want to do the Brenton Strange thing, like and chase that. He does have a couple end zone targets too. And then the only other guy that I think is a standout this week in terms of cash would be David Njoku. Because he's 3,500 now on DraftKings, which is pretty crazy. So I have been talking about for a while that when Dillon Gabriel whenever Dillon Gabriel is going to play, because I expected him to play sooner than later anyways, when he comes into play, these Browns tight ends were going to be hyper involved. And proof of concept in week 1, we got it right away. He targeted tight ends 41% of the time. So Dillon Gabriel is not a big arm strength guy, but he's a quick processor. You want to see the ball out of his hands. Low ADOT type of quarterback. In week 5, his time to throw 2.45 seconds after the snap was the 8th fastest in the league. 6.2 air yards per target. That was 25th in the league. Joe Flacco held the ball a lot longer. He wants to try to get the football down the field. He was 21st in time to throw after the snap. He was 18th in air yards per pass attempt. Also, the Steelers 30th in touchdown rate to tight ends, 8.6 yards per targets, 27th. And the volume is here for Njoku. He's 5th among all tight ends in routes run. He's tight end 9 and he's run a route on 80% of the dropbacks. So I don't want to say it was just a 1 week thing for him. I actually do believe Dillon Gabriel and his insertion in the lineup is pretty pivotal for a low price guy here that can get a lot of targets.
There you go. Yeah, they did kind of sneak him in there pretty cheap this week. Normally he's in like the mid 4 range on DraftKings. So yeah, 3,500, nice little dip there in pricing for Njoku. Who would have thought we needed Dillon Gabriel to unlock David Njoku? But here we are. Real quick on defense. This is the spot in cash games where, for me, last piece in, like, let's figure everything else out and then we'll see what we have left at defense. I've got 3 on my list. I would, of course, love to play the Packers. They're very expensive. I'd love to spend up on some of these teams. But for me, I'm going to approach this more as a punt week at cash. So the Raiders are 3,200 taking on Cam Ward, who obviously we know their struggles. In the same game, I think you can play the Titans at 2,400 against Geno without his left tackle. He is he was so many moments of like awesome play the last couple of years in Seattle. He has just been abysmal ever since he moved to the Raiders. And then in that kind of same range there down at 2,500, I think the Browns are in play. Just a low total game against the Packers there. Obviously, they've got a pretty good pass rush. So any thoughts on defense this week outside of those 3 names for cash style contests?
No, I like that. I definitely think it's just a pay down week to see what you can kind of throw at the wall. I like all those calls. Don't really have a ton to add out of them. The Buccaneers would be kind of like a wild card.
Love it. Maybe a little pivot in tournaments there for the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about that game, so I don't want to spoil anything. But Todd Bowles to be blitzing Mac Jones' face off.
He sure is. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We'll talk about some of these game stacks.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today. Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. You know, the real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW. Let us surprise you.
All right, Rich, we've got some games to break down today. Let's do it.
Stack Attack.
First up on the list, you mentioned Todd Bowles blitzing Mac Jones' face-off. We've got the Niners traveling to Tampa as 3-point underdogs. The over-under is 47.5. This is kind of a fun, pace-up spot, potentially. The Niners are number one overtime adjusted plays per game. And like I kind of mentioned, when Mac Daddy's been in there, Mac Jones, Kyle Shanahan is just letting him cook. So This is a spot quietly. San Francisco number one in pass attempts per game. Obviously, you look at the matchup. The Bucs very good against the run. They kind of force teams to throw. We know what Baker's going to do on the other side of the ball. I am pretty interested in these San Francisco stacks. You mentioned when we talked to Cash, maybe a pivot at Bucs defense. How do you see the game going? What are your thoughts on Mac Jones stacks this week? Give me some thoughts here on this game.
Yeah, Mac Jones, first 49ers quarterback to win 3 straight starts while throwing 35 or more passes since Steve Young. It's never happened in the Shanahan era. Also, another fun Mac Jones stat is he now has more wins with the 49ers than Trey Lance had. So vindication all around for
that hurts
for Kyle Shanahan. But this is a spot where I think the way I'm going to play this game is I'm going to play it small field single entry as a stack up game, and then really not anywhere else. Because I think the median outcome for this game is it could be kind of like low 20s, high teens. I think these teams played last year and it was kind of in that range because they both were missing a lot of pieces too. There's an avenue where this game pops too. That's why I want to say small field single entry is where I'm going to play it. But I'm a little nervous about Mac Jones here in this spot. Now, pending who we get, if we do get Juwan Jennings back, that does help a little bit. But so the Buccaneers, obviously, they blitz a lot anyways under Todd Bowles. They're sixth in blitz rate. And the other thing is when they blitz effectively. It's not like the Miami Dolphins. When the Buccaneers do blitz, they get pressures on 53% of their blitzes. That's the third highest rate in the league. So not only are they blitzing a lot, they're getting a lot of pressures on their blitzes. Mac Jones has not been blitzed a lot yet. Obviously, the Rams don't blitz. They just sit back and play a lot of coverage. He's been blitzed at the second lowest rate in the league. The only quarterback lower, Brock Purdy. Then you would say, all right, well, maybe that's a systemic thing. Well, last year when Todd Bowles faced Brock Purdy, he absolutely blitzed his face off too. 44% of the time he sent blitzes at Brock Purdy. When Mac Jones has faced the blitz this year, he's 28th in completion rate, 29th in yards per pass attempt, 30th in yards per completion. When he's been pressured, he's 25th in yards per pass attempt. So I'm a little nervous about this spot because we've seen him play 2 teams his last 2 starts against the Cardinals and the Rams, who play very passive styles of defense. They don't blitz a lot. They play a lot of zone coverage. That's not going to happen here. So I do think that there is a very volatile outcome for the 49ers passing game too here.
Yeah, I think that's a great point where not just is it the pressure thing, but, Mac Jones is just gutting it out there, limping to the sideline after every other play. Just looks so disheveled at the end of the game. But what a performance, in primetime Thursday night. But yes, there is the kind of lingering knee issue too with Mac Jones. And if he is going to be under that amount of pressure, obviously we don't think of him as a mobile quarterback anyway, but his pocket presence and awareness and ability to maneuver against the blitz, if he's banged up, is not going to be pretty. We're still waiting on wide receiver injuries. I do want to also throw out Jake Tonjes if you did want to a pivot in the Njoku range, just from a salary standpoint, a price point pivot. He's 3,700 on DraftKings, 68+% of the snaps in all 4 games without Kittle, coming off a season high, of course, overtime, but 11 targets last week for a 23% share. I think he is in play if you did want another stacking partner with Mac Jones. I also think you can play Mac Jones with CMC, like we talked about, just given that he is basically their wide receiver 1. at this point. On the other side, we did talk about Rachaad White a little bit. Chris Godwin did not practice Wednesday or Thursday coming out of last week's game with soreness based off of the ankle. He's still kind of ramping up here, not yet 100%. So even if he's in, he's not going to make my player pool. Does that just force us like directly onto, if you're stacking up Baker, Egbuka, and Cade Otton and nobody else? I mean, is it that simple?
I mean, yeah, I mean, just everything to Egbuka again, right? Like, we didn't even really talk about him in cash games, but I think he actually is playable there too. If you have a room to fit two guys that like kind of like that salary structure, not everyone will. I think it depends on your build, but you look at just the opportunity he's going to be given here with, potentially, Chris Godwin, even if he plays, with Mike Evans off the field. I mean, he has 26% of the team targets, 3.56 yards per route run. And then the spot for him is really where he kind of lines up to how he's accrued his points. So a lot of people have talked about like the separation stuff. I'm not here for the Mekabuka holy war of like creating separation, but he is averaging just 0.60 yards per route run against man coverage. Against zone coverage, it goes up to 2.91 yards per route run. 49ers, another very zone-centric team under Robert Saleh. They only play man coverage 14.9% of the time. It's 27th in the league. They also are, when they do play a lot of zone coverage, because Robert Saleh is under the Vic Fangio tree, they play a lot of quarters, cover four. They're second in the league in rate of cover four. Well, no receiver in the NFL has more receiving yards this season. It's cover four right now than Emeka Egbuka. He's actually having 4.5 yards per out run too against that. So it's just a really good spot, I think, for Egbuka in terms of getting targets based on the health of the Tampa Bay wide receiver room. And then the matchup provides a lot of signals for where he's excelled at, in this opening start of his rookie season.
Love it. Yeah. And like we talked about with some of the quarterbacks here, right? Like the scrambling rushing quarterbacks aren't really on this slate outside of maybe like Drake May. Baker Mayfield, I mean, he'll pop up, for 25, 30, 35 rushing yards here and there. And he did that last year. And we were all like, is this the new normal? Like, because he didn't really do that a ton previously. He's on pace for almost 500 rushing yards this year. And obviously it's only been, 5 games, but he ran for 378 last year, just for context. So we are seeing a little more scrambling here where Baker just goes into Superman mode to win these games. And he's going to have to do that again, I think, if they want to win this one. So yeah, I like that call quite a bit there with Egbuka. And then, Cade Otton, he's on the field. He's running the routes.
He's on the field.
Is he going to get 1 target or 6? Nobody knows. And it's fun to find out when roster percentage is low. Otherwise,
this is another, just like you talked about stacking CMC with Mac Jones. You can play Rachaad White in this stack. Like, you can do Egbuka, White, and Baker.
Totally.
Yeah, the 49ers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Running backs have 21% of the catches against the 49ers. That's the 7th highest rate. They're 22nd in receiving points allowed. So it's kind of the same thing, right? Like, it just stacks. These are kind of mirror teams almost with wide receiver injuries and pass catching running backs that can't really run the football. It's actually kind of funny how they match up somewhat similarly. We do get Juwan Jennings. Keep an eye on not just the Jennings injury, but also the Jamel Dean portion of the Buccaneers side.
Sure.
To see if he's available. Because going back to last year now, Dean did not play this past Sunday. And going back to last year, anytime he's missed time, their splits have been night and day in terms of defending wide receiver. So he's another guy to keep an eye on the injury report.
Love that call. Definitely a sneaky injury on this slate to look at. All right, let's move over to the game of the week if you're Rico Dowdle. The revenge game of all revenge games here. Dallas taking on Carolina. They are 3.5 point favorites. Are the Cowboys the over-under? The highest on the main slate at 49.5. Cowboys games have just been a party for DFS. They are third in EPA per play offensively. They are dead last in EPA per play defensively, which is the recipe you want when you've got a quarterback and a team like the Cowboys that are playing as well as they are. We already talked about the running backs here. We talked about Javonte, an awesome play. Rico's an awesome play. You mentioned Dak is in your cash consideration, so obviously you're excited about this spot for him. The stacking partners it's clean, right? Without CeeDee Lamb. Like, I assume you're stacking him with Pickens. And if you want a second guy, is it Jake Ferguson here with all these PPR points, or are you getting sneaky with a Flournoy or Tolbert or any of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ferguson is the standout for this particular spot. We talked about the static cover 3 looks that Carolina provides. I mean, against those coverages, Ferguson leads the team with 31% of the team targets. All 3 of his touchdowns have also come against cover 3 looks. And then Carolina's been just tormented by tight ends. This is actually like the whole thing under a Vero. Like, it's just like going on for years. But they're 31st in yards per target, 25th in receptions per game on tight end, 23rd in touchdown rate. I do also like Pickens as well. So I mean, this is a Cowboys like smoke 'em if you got him game, like all around. Yeah. The only thing I'll say about Flournoy is if you're going to get to him again this week, is one thing is to keep in context. Two things actually matter. One, you need Devontae Turpin to be inactive again. So Correct. He has not practiced, and it looks like he's actually trending not to play. So it looks like we will have that op. So we'll just keep tabs on it. And then the other thing is, while the targets were nice last week, keep in mind that George Pickens only had 4 targets last week. So they're like, when George Pickens isn't getting targeted, the targets are going to go somewhere else. The Jets are also a team that I've just been outright opening the year targeted for wide receiver 2s, the way they play defense, because they're using Sauce Gardner to shadow the opposing wide receiver 1. So in London, maybe you like a little Troy Franklin props, or you want to get Troy Franklin in your lineup this week as a wide receiver 3. A little spot for him too this week too. So those are just things to keep an eye on. Like, keep in mind the context of how Flournoy got his targets. It also came in a game where Pickens wasn't targeted, and that's not going to be as static. We're not going to have a lot of 4-target games for Pickens while CeeDee Lamb is out.
For sure. Rich, that's why you're on the show, man. We ask you for these, main slate takes, and you give us with a Sunday morning London take. So I love it. Maybe a little Troy Franklin captain and showdown this week. We'll see.
Maybe.
On the Carolina side, Rico, just the volume is going to be there. I do worry roster percentage here in terms of ownership is going to get out of control with what we just saw and the narrative, revenge game, all the things. That said, it's an awesome spot on paper. Yeah. If you did want to pivot, man, Bryce Young is 4,800.
I played some Bryce Young last week. It did not go well.
No, and that's the thing, right? Is like sometimes you have these game scripts where it's like Rico steals the show or Chuba, and he doesn't have to do much, and that's what they would prefer. But sometimes these games get wild, and as we've seen with these Cowboy games, like I think we both feel pretty confident the Cowboys are going to put up points here. So if Bryce Young is pushed, and even if he's not super efficient and he's not great at 4,800 on this slate where, there's no Lamar, there's no Josh Allen, there's no Jalen Hurts, all these guys that can give us these huge 35-point games, I'm kind of interested in tournaments on Bryce Young and just not watching the game. Close your eyes, don't watch the game. And then obviously stacking him up with Tedero McMillan, who's seen target shares of 26, 19, 33, 25, and 30% so far this year. Obviously, this is the spot to play wide receivers. Can Bryce Young do it? Can he get our boy Ted McMillan into the end zone?
Yeah, but part of my thesis for playing, Panther passing stacks was obviously we were going to have all this ownership on Dowdle last week with Chuba Hubbard being out, and it's like, all right, it was still objectively a good passing matchup too for them. It's all right, so I'm going to mix in some Bryce Young and Ted McMillan, and Bryce Young just was so bad still. And the one wild card here too is like Dallas says they're a bad defense. They actually do get they've been getting pressure on the other opposing quarterback, and that's kind of been Young's bugaboo. But at this price, I have no problem, especially with the ownership that we're going to get. I'm going to dabble in Ted McMillan. I will say there's some systemic stuff I think that's concerning big picture for him. I think we're not seeing a quite 1-for-1 overlap to what happened with Marvin Harrison Jr., but there are some things that are similar where he's not where he wins isn't a fit, and where he's being deployed isn't a fit for where Bryce Young wins. And we're seeing some of that be a hang up in terms of getting Ted McMillan over the hump, right? Like if you look at it, so he's playing 85% of his snaps out wide. Bryce Young is bottom 4 in throwing outside the numbers this season. Downfield, but he has the worst completion rate on throws 10 or more yards downfield. He's completed 17 of 50 passes. And then on throws 20 yards or further downfield, 4 of 14. And then the other thing that's a bugaboo here for Tet is, I don't know what the rationale behind this, because at least Marv had this as a rookie. They're not using him near the end zone at all. The Carolina Panthers have 27 red zone throws this year. How many do you think have gone to Tet McMillan?
I'm gonna guess 2.
5, so a little better. And then they have 11. They've thrown the ball into the end zone 11 times, and only twice of those have gone to Tet McMillan. It's egregious when you look at their roster. What are these play calls? What are we doing in the money zone? Why are we not throwing to our 6'4" wide receiver that could jump over everybody? And why are we not giving him shots? Was
it the Cardinals game a couple weeks ago that Hunter Renfrow was getting all those looks inside the 5-yard line?
Yeah.
Of course, Max Payne.
And then Mitchell Evans is getting red zone looks. But this would be a spot to just at least give one more week, because no one's allowed more fantasy points to opposing wide receiver ones than the Cowboys. If you're looking for that first touchdown of the year, please be it. Please be it. Like,
Dave
so I'm still going to
Canales,
dabble.
if you're
I'm still
listening.
dabbling with him, but I think big picture in your season long stuff, which this show doesn't go. I know a lot of people are putting Ted out there as a buy. I actually think I'd be more inclined to use that as an advantage to maybe come off of him, because I think unless we get Andy Dalton eventually, which could happen, to be honest, the way Bryce Young's playing, but I think that there's a disconnect with where Bryce Young is comfortable throwing the football and where he wins, and where Ted McMillan is currently being deployed and where he wins right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. If we do get Andy Dalton this season, this is going to be fun. So we'll see. For now, we get Bryce Young, and hopefully he can get Ted McMillan in the end zone. We'll find out this weekend in a beautiful matchup. Any other thoughts on this game? I mean, it's pretty clear this is a fun spot to target. I don't really have anything negative to say about this game environment. It looks like it should be a lot of points.
Nope. Yep. I'm with you all the way.
All right, let's talk Cardinals and Colts. The Cardinals have been in the news all week because of Marty Mercado at the end zone and Jonathan Gannon's fiasco on the sideline and all those things. We are recording this Thursday evening, and we did get news. No Kyler today at practice again after not practicing Wednesday. So it could be Jacoby Brissett in this game. I think that might affect a couple of different things in terms of how the game plan goes and in terms of how the spread might move and stuff like that. But as of now, we've got Colts favored at home by 6.5. The over-under is 47.5. Let's start on the Arizona side of the ball. Obviously, we don't have to talk about the quarterback in too much detail here because it's so uncertain. Just for context,
what's your take on the Kyler injury? This is what I want the goods from you.
I mean, it's his right foot. If he is playing through that and he is trying to drop back off that right foot and push off and deliver the ball down the field, he will probably have accuracy issues. I also think he won't run as much. Not that he's been like a huge prolific runner, but obviously that's part of his game. I think that's going to be an issue. So what I have kind of thought about this in terms of if he plays or if it's Jacoby Brissett, who, revenge game, by the way, against the Colts. If it's him, you could see more like in-pocket play calls here as far as the pass game, which I think in a negative game script here, if the spread is right, 6.5, I think Trey McBride could just get peppered with some of these underneath looks in this game. That's kind of how I'm approaching it. It's such a frustrating offense, though, man. Like, the pieces are there. The talent is there. The scheme, however, is not necessarily there. So that's kind of my general take on the Cardinals. And I believe that the Colts are a good team. Like, they almost beat the Rams. They probably should have beat the Rams if A.D. Mitchell didn't have his boneheaded plays. Obviously, they performed quite well last week. They are home favorites here. It does feel like another Jonathan Taylor, just, hey, if we get up to a lead, we're going to feed him and he's going to get 25 touches and he's going to do his thing. And if they're successful in doing that, I just don't know that Arizona has the firepower and the capability to play from behind in this spot. So I'm overall lower on the Cardinals just, in general. That said, Marv is 5,300 on DraftKings. We talked about Olave and the 49ers guys and Pittman and all these other guys in this range. I think Marv could fall through the cracks a little bit. So just if you're looking for like a roster percentage pivot in that range, I think Marv is in play for tournaments. But man, the Cardinals are just so frustrating week in and week out. That's where I'm at with them. I'm just lower, I think, than market on where these guys are at.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only kind of case that you could try to maybe make for Marvin, like a large field, would just be the insertion of Brissett, a guy that can actually throw over the middle of the field. Actually prefers to throw over the middle of the field. It probably helps McBride more because Brissett's 28% of his career targets have gone to tight ends. That's since he entered the NFL, it's 9th highest in the league. But you saw Marv when they kind of interviewed him about Brissett, and he kind of even looked excited, like Marv might play, like Brissett might play. Like maybe, hey, maybe I can get targeted on some of these plays over the middle of the field. But I don't think that that's enough for me to willingly want to be aggressive with him in DFS, right? With you, I think this is a spot for the Colts to control the game. They've been such a good team, and the Cardinals, they haven't shown us a run out where they could get to a position to score 27 plus points. I don't really have that kind of faith, especially even going to Brissett.
For sure. Yeah,
so games, I'm with you.
They don't the way that they want to win, right, is not necessarily in these high flying back and forth shootouts for Arizona. Even when they're trailing, they're not really putting the foot on the gas to try to catch up and play high profile games that we want for fantasy. They are their games are 3-2 to the under so far this year. They haven't scored more than 27 points in a game. That was in week 2 against Carolina. So
defensive touchdown.
That's true. So I just don't know that they're a team that you really will need on this slate, especially when you adjust for salary for Trey McBride. That's where I'm at. So we'll see if things change over the weekend. Make sure you're tracking, the projections and everything and roster percentage. On the Colts side, at wide receiver, it's Pittman, like you talked about, I have no issues with Tyler Warren any week. He's just incredible. Jonathan Taylor is in an unbelievable spot here as well. And then it's kind of tricky to get into like any ancillary pieces, right? Because Josh Downs, you kind of want a negative game script where there's 3 wide receiver sets, and we're still waiting on news on Alec Pierce. But even then, it's like, how much does Daniel Jones have to throw in this game? So overall, again, I'm kind of lower on this game just in general because of some of these issues from the Cardinals side. I think it's going to be another JT big game here. But if you did want to play a Daniel Jones stack, you mentioned Michael Pittman. You mentioned, or I mentioned rather, Tyler Warren is in play. Do you have any takes on those 2 guys specifically, or are you just kind of saying, hey, JT's probably going to smash here. Let's just move on.
Yeah, and like I said, if you're someone that can make that salary for Jonathan Taylor work for your build, big home favorite, easy spot, right? Like easy to go to him. So definitely make that happen. Yeah, it's just the Colts. It's just they have to be pushed, and we both kind of agree that it's harder to see up an avenue where they get pushed. The Colts have a 62.8% drop back rate in the first half of games this year. That's 11th in the NFL. They're 31st in second half. Daniel Jones threw 5 passes in the second half on Sunday, and that's been kind of buggy. Daniel Jones, number 1 in the NFL in fantasy points scored in the first half this year, but he's 23rd in second half scoring because they just haven't played in very many game environments that are positive. He also, we're not getting those 1-yard touchdown runs that we were getting to open the year.
Right.
The JT started to get in the end zone. Remember, everyone was kind of worried. They're like, oh, the Colts are doing the push. It's going to ruin Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor's like, well, what if I just scored 3 touchdowns a game? Like,
oh my gosh. He is just playing at an unbelievable level right now, Jonathan Taylor. And then for Daniel Jones, every now and then you might get a Tyler Warren sneak too as well, and they tried to let Tyler Warren throw for a touchdown last week as well. So
which
fun
he
stuff
did do,
there.
Yeah, Penn State a little bit too.
Super fun team this year, man, with the Colts. We'll see if they can keep it rolling. Obviously, we like them in this spot, but I'm lower on this game stack, kind of like we mentioned here.
Yep.
In general. One more game to talk about. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today. Come to DSW for the shoes, stay for the fun. Because let's be honest, if shoe shopping isn't fun, are you even doing it right? So go ahead, try something new. Try something different. Good different. Try something that feels like you. The real you. And then definitely brag about it later. Because at DSW, you've got unlimited freedom to play. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW. Let us surprise you.
All right, Rich, last game we're going to preview today. The Seattle Seahawks travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars here. Jaguars favored 1.5 points here at home. The over-under is a nice 47.5. We did talk about Trevor Lawrence a little bit in this game. We talked obviously about JSN. I don't think I have too many things other than that to add to this spot. You mentioned being interested in Sam Darnold. He is 5,400 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. I would love to get your takes on him in this game because the man is playing at an unbelievable level. In the offseason, I was worried. Like, you leave Kevin O'Connell, you leave Justin Jefferson in the dome and all those things. I didn't know how it would go in Seattle because of how they prefer to play, which is obviously excellent defense, a lot of rushing attempts, all those things. He has been perfect for what they've asked him to do. And when he is called upon with his arm to win the game, he can do it as well. So I like the spot for him. It sounds like you do too. What are your thoughts here on Sam Darnold?
Yeah, and really what we like about him, especially even from a tournament perspective, is that we don't have those runners because you always are a little skeptical with these pocket passers and in larger field stuff because they just have to run so pure to combat the guys that are giving you the rushing production. So, we this is a very pocket passer main slate, like you've kind of hinted at. But Sam Darnold now leads the NFL in yards per pass attempt. He's been 8.9 yards or more the last 4 games. What I like about him in this particular matchup, though, is how much play action the Seattle Seahawks run. I mean, he leads the NFL in yards per pass attempt using play action. He averages 13.3 yards per pass attempt using play action, 19.1 yards per completion using the play action pass. Well, the Jaguars have been one of the most vulnerable defenses to play action pass this season. We'll see if Greg Newsome fixes that, but that might just be a top-down thing. So against non-play action passes, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4th in completion rate allowed, 59.1%. They're 8th in yards per pass attempt allowed, 6.1 yards pass attempt. Against play action passes, though, 20th in yards per attempt allowed, 8.3, 22nd in completion rate allowed, 72.1%. So I like the way that lines up for them being one pushed and then be able to incorporate, what they want to do, run a lot of play action against the team that's vulnerable to it. So Darnold at his price point with JSN looks particularly interesting, and as a full kind of run back, if we get to Friday and none of these Seahawks guys have played, Tariq Woolen hasn't cleared concussion protocol and Devin Witherspoon isn't back, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is very interesting in stacks of this game. The target share stuff's been there. Monday, I would say, is the best he looked, too. He didn't have any weird interest stuff. You might disagree, because this is great that I'm doing a show at you, so maybe you can push back on me. It looked like Monday was the first time where he wasn't doing all the stuff, like holding his wrist weird or coming out of the game and doing stuff. So, is he fully healthy? But when Josh Jobe and Nehemiah Pritchett, I almost botched his name, Nehemiah Pritchett, who filled in for Rico Woolen, filled in when they were on the field together last week. Tampa Bay wide receivers caught 7 of 8 targets for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. If those two guys are out, Witherspoon and Woolen this week, and Brian Thomas can't get there, I don't know what else we need. The supreme carpet would be rolled out. So I do like the Darnold plus JSN plus Brian Thomas build in this game.
I love that call. Yeah, this is one of those spots I always struggle early in DFS season where you're so tied, at least for a few weeks, to what you were doing in August with redraft leagues and stuff. And obviously, Brian Thomas Jr. was a 1-2 turn pick all summer in best ball, and I have a ton of him. And I've been waiting for the game. And like you said, you've finally seen some flashes in the last game and a half or so out of Brian Thomas Jr. With as far as the risk is concerned and stuff like that. Brenton Strange quietly vacates about a 17% target share in this offense as well. We'll see what Hunter Long and Johnny Munt do at tight end, but I'm not expecting much. So could you get an extra 2 or 3 targets in this game to Brian Thomas because of that Strange injury? Let's hope so. And if that happens, I think he's an unbelievable play this week in tournaments, like you said, as well. And just kind of given, like we talked about, the pricing structure, a lot of cash teams are going to say one of the elites at the top, JSN or Puka or whatever at wide receiver, and then a lot of the lower 5K range is kind of what cash, air quotes, builds are going to be this week. So it's possible this 6K range kind of gets skipped over a little bit. So I think just from a build standpoint too, he makes a ton of sense there at 6,200 on DraftKings. I love that call in this game. I also
if you want to play Hunter Long, he's a full punt. He's min price on both sites.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting. He ran 21 routes after Brent Strange left the game to just 4 for Johnny Munt. I'm not expecting much. Hunter Long's been historically in his career more of a blocking tight end. He does have a couple touchdowns, but the matchup is still there. Seattle, 24% of the points scored against Seattle have been scored by tight ends. We even saw Cade Otton have an okay-ish Cade Otton game last week against them, who's another guy that was always just on the field but not doing much. So if you're just punting, I'll never push back on anyone just saying I don't care what I get at the punt tight end, especially more so on DraftKings than FanDuel. So he's there. He'll
be on the field.
Well, because people are probably trying to talk themselves into Barner a little bit because Barner is running a little pure, but Barner's actually losing reps. He just keeps scoring touchdowns. Even last week, his route participation dropped again. Elijah Arroyo's playing a little bit more. It's that AJ Barner's kind of in this Clint Kubiak role where he's the Foster Moreau of this offense, where he does get that red zone utilization, but he's literally built entirely on the red zone utilization. So he's not necessarily a guy I want to chase a lot because even though the box score, he has 3 touchdowns the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's fair. And anytime this archetype of tight end has had this touchdown production recently, you kind of know what's coming sooner than later. Right? One of those games where it's 2 for 18 and no touchdown. That feels like that's coming pretty soon here for AJ Barner. But yes, I love that call on Brian Thomas Jr. for tournaments. All right, last 2 quick mentions. The Rams have a massive team total on this slate. They're going to score points. The question is how much, if at all, will they be pushed? I personally don't think I'm playing anybody on the Baltimore side, but you could talk me into a Puka, a Devontae, a Kyron Williams. Any of those guys make a ton of sense. The Ravens have given up 41 to Buffalo, 38 to Detroit, 37 to Kansas City, and 44 to Houston last week. So obviously we think the Rams can put up points here. Any takes overall on the Rams just as an onslaught build this week? Any one-offs from LA?
Obviously, you can play the receivers. We know where the ball goes. in this McVay offense. I do not think I'm going to go like full onslaught though, just because if you look at Stafford's 2 spike weeks this year, he actually the past 2 weeks has set a new Rams high in passing yardage, which is pretty crazy.
Leads the league.
But they were pushed in both games. I don't know if that happens here. So how much passing volume do we get from them? Because McVay in his heart of hearts too will lean on the run game. I really like Kyren Williams as a tournament play this week for a couple of reasons, not just for that, but Baltimore looks like they're going to get back Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey. We are not scared about those guys coming back for Puka and Devontae because those guys can win versus anybody. But the run game is still, the run defense is still a problem. Matabuke is obviously not coming back. Roquan looks like he's still not going to play. They are dead last in rushing EPA as a defense. They're allowing 157 total yards per game to running backs. They've allowed 8 touchdowns to running backs. And what I specifically like is the systemic matchup. So 46% of Kyren Williams runs are man gap runs. It's the 3rd highest rate in the league. This is one I had to go back and double check that I had it wrong. I had this in the worksheet though. Baltimore against man gap runs to running backs, they're allowing 8 yards per carry to running backs on those runs, which is like a pass attempt, right? Like, yeah. And the sample isn't even small. Like it's just under 40 runs too. Like I wish I would have actually dug into this more and not had the Woody Marks blinders on last week, because Nick Chubb is another high man gap runner, and it might have, not that he would have won me tournaments because Uncle Rico had 35 at 40, yeah. 300, but 8 yards per carry on those types of runs at 4 touchdowns. So I kind of really like Kyren. I know we're going to share some player props. One I won't give, but one I gave out on our show that I can share too is Blake Corum, longest rush and Blake Corum rushing yards. I really like too in this game as well. A lot of people think Blake Corum got doghouse last week. I actually don't believe that was the case. McVay had some commentary on this too. So when Corum lost his fumble, it put the Rams into trail mode because the 49ers scored that next possession and they were up double digits the rest of the way out. And Corum doesn't play when the Rams trail. He's only played 17% of the snaps when the Rams have been trailing. And it's why Kyren, even after his fumble, wasn't benched because they still needed him because they were in the 2-minute drill right after that. So I do think we're going to see Corum be back into like that split that he was getting towards where the Rams were playing ahead the previous 2 weeks. So I do think we're going to see some more Corum. You're not playing him in DFS. I was just sharing kind of my thoughts for maybe some player prop stuff and then him in this matchup if you're looking for some like real low hanging fruit stuff.
We hear you. We hear you. Blake Corum's going to break the slate, Rich. We heard it here. No, just kidding. On his prop, 23.5 is what I'm seeing for rushing yardage on MGM. His longest rush on DraftKings is plus 110, 9.5 yards. So if you did want to get some plus money there, that makes a lot of sense. He has a double-digit rush
in 4 straight games. He only had 1 carry last week and got there.
We only need 1 in this matchup. We only need 1. The Packers are the other team that I don't know if I'm going to get there on the Bengals side of things, but the Packers, man, they're projected to score 30 points. Obviously, the matchup is beautiful against the Bengals. The question is, and I keep kind of like chasing my tail with Packers stuff because Jordan Love has the ceiling sometimes that we're looking for it, but who is he bringing along for the ride? How many routes are these guys going to run is always kind of the question mark. Obviously, Josh Jacobs could score 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game, but if you are going to play the Packers side, any interest in Jordan Love stacks here? We did talk about Tucker Kraft being in a good spot. Not sure what your thoughts are on the wide receivers here as well.
Yeah, I am interested in this. And this is another one that's more of a tournament base, not cash game play, because the Daniel Jones factor, right? Like we've seen the Packers when they get a lead, like they're willing to just do the same thing that the Colts do at Jonathan Taylor. We're going to let Josh Jacobs rip like this whole second half. Like we got our 20-point lead. It's time to let Josh just cook. But if they're going to be building that league, I do think Jordan Love's going to be a part of that. There's just some great peripherals here that I like about him in this matchup. So he's 4th in yards per pass in the NFL, 6th in touchdown rate. This is while being pressured at the 6th highest rate in the league. When he's been kept clean, he has an 87% completion rate that leads the NFL. 10.7 yards per attempt, that leads the NFL. His 10.3% touchdown rate ranks 3rd in the NFL when kept clean. Why do I mention that? Well, coming out of the bye, the Packers are getting Zach Tom and Aaron Banks back up front. Tom's just played 31 snaps here. He got that offseason contract. Banks has just played 73. And then to double down on that, love stats from a clean pocket. Guess who can't rush the passer? Cincinnati Bengals. 27th in pressure rate, 20th in sack rate. So I do think that it's a good spot for Jordan Love. Hopefully this Flacco stuff, maybe we can get more push than we're expecting. I'm not optimistic about it. in this particular match because the Packers' pass defense has been so good outside of that Dak Prescott heater in the second half. But I do think Jordan Love is interesting. We talked about pairing McCraft, and then I just think you would just play Dobbs if you're going to chase a receiver. I don't think you necessarily do. I think you can play Kraft. I think Kraft's enough, and it gets spread around, but Dobbs' touchdown equity is so high that I believe that he can be played. I mean, he has a 30% target share in the red zone. Outside the red zone, 14.4%. He also has 50% of the team's end zone targets this year. So
if we can get a little bit of that to Tedero McMillan, I know it's not the same team, obviously, but anything close to that usage, come on. That's a great point on Dobbs. 3 touchdowns in that game before the bye week against the Cowboys. So definitely was a key piece of the showdown slate.
If he doesn't score, he's a paperweight.
Yes, that's correct. That is correct. All right, last segment here before we get into some props and Survivor. We have to talk slate breakers.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
Right, Rich, as the guest of the show, you get the floor, my man. Who are you going with this week? Who's your guy that you want to be overweight on in tournaments?
Well, I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but Kyren Williams was kind of my pick. It's just so we kind of start talking about that game a little bit for all the things we talked about. I think people are going to chase the quarterback stuff versus the Ravens of the past 2 weeks. Stafford might end up not getting pushed. Could be a run heavy script. And then I just laid out those like underlying metrics in terms of, the type of runs that Kyren gets versus the Ravens on being able to defend those so far.
Beautiful.
But I
love it.
I have that one.
Love Kyren this week. Awesome spot here. Massive team total. The matchups there. Play some Kyren Williams. I'm a little upset, Rich. You talked down about the spot here for Tedero McMillan with Bryce Young and how
Not
he
the
plays.
Spot,
and
just his quarterback.
And that's the issue. But man, I don't want to be late to the party. So I'm going to play him again this week. I'm going to hope for the best.
That's why I'm playing him
is that good.
I don't want to miss because I've played him like 3 times and it hasn't worked. And I don't martingale this thing.
For sure. You don't want to be the one not playing him when he finally catches the touchdown. So I'm going with Tedero McMillan. One of our writers, Marvin Eloquin, just posted his expected fantasy points model for week 6 in the DFS pass. He has wide receiver 8 in terms of the usage here for Tedero McMillan, but the wide receiver 32 in actual half PPR points. Please, Bryce Young, let's get this man a touchdown. I'm going with Tedero McMillan. Rich is going with Kyren Williams. All right, last couple of things.
One guy we didn't talk about in the context of the slate at all so far that I at least want to bring up is Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, that's a good call too. I almost went with him, where it's just like, man, this Titans team is so bad, and you kind of need to pick your spots, right, with Jeanty and the Raiders.
How many more games are we going to have Ashton Jeanty as a home favorite for the remainder of the season?
Oh, that's a good, maybe 2? I set the line at 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, and not only is he a home favorite, I mean, he's facing a Titans team that is allowing 22 rushing points per game to running backs, which is the highest in the league. So I went with Kyren, but I just don't want, I at least want to make it clear because I know if people are listening, it's like, they didn't even mention Ashton Jeanty versus the Titans. Ashton Jeanty is a phenomenal play as well.
Love it. Just name like 6 players, Rich. That way, if 1 or 2 of them go off, you just get all the credit. That's how it's done.
Well,
that's
no,
a pro
I just
move
want to
right
put
there.
stuff out there. Well, it's a really great, I believe, running back slate. Like we talked about, in cash playing McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor. I actually think in tournaments though, you don't necessarily have to play either of them. I think you can play 2 to 3 running backs in that Kyren, Jeanty, Josh Jacobs, Javonte Williams range. Like I think you can probably get by this week and do it.
For sure. I think that's a great call. Really strong running back slate. Definitely some good pivots there as well, including Ashton Jeanty. All right, let's prop it up.
Prop it like it's hot.
All right, Rich, you already gave us your Stone Cold Lock of the Week. We know Blake Corum's going to run for at least, 1 10-plus rush in this game. He only needs 1 carry. He's going to get it. I'm going to go to London for my play this week. I'm going to take Justin Fields. Under 36.5 rushing yards. Absolutely terrified to give this out because we know what he can do on any 1 or 2 carries. We know the scrambling is there. The Broncos, I don't know if it's like scheme related or what. I would love to get your thoughts there, but they've allowed 15 total rushing yards to quarterbacks this year.
They faced a lot of good mobile guys.
They faced Jalen Hurts just last week, 3 yards. Justin Herbert, 6 rushing yards. Daniel Jones, just 2 rushing yards. Opposing quarterbacks have scrambled on a league low 3% of their dropbacks against Denver, who obviously can get after the passer. So I'm going to just be terrified this entire game with this play, but I'll take Justin Fields over in London under 36.5 rushing yards.
I like that one. How about I stay on theme with you in capacity? I'm not going to take an under, but what if I do a quarterback rushing prop as well?
Please. I would love to hear it.
I love Justin Herbert's rushing yards over this week. I think books are still too slow on this. Obviously, I think they're going to have to go pivot to drop back a little bit more this week, given Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, Naheem Hines. Like, there's no way they can run their offense like through those guys.
Absolutely
and we did
not.
see last year when Dobbins started to get hurt, and then Gus Edwards got hurt. That's when their pass rate started to ramp up. Is when the running back room was ineffective. But right now, Justin Herbert's averaging a career high 30.6 rushing yards per game. But it's not just inflated by one game. He has 24 or more yards in 4 of his opening 5 games. And in this particular matchup, there's a few things that line up for this. The Miami Dolphins are 29th in rushing yards allowed per game to quarterbacks. And part of that is the Miami Dolphins blitz a lot. They are the fourth highest blitz rate in the NFL. Well, Justin Herbert has a career high 4.5 scramble rate against the blitz. He's 3rd in the NFL in scramble yards against the blitz this season. This one's pretty low in some spots. It's a wide range. If you have something like a site like OddsJam or something, you can look at all the books. You can look it up, but there's a pretty wide range. I've seen it as low as 14.5 and then as high as 18.5. It's floating around, but this is one I think I'll probably would bet, I probably will ladder this too. I'm probably going to do some Justin Herbert rushing ladders because who doesn't love a good ladder?
Seriously, put this up to 20, 25, 30 yards. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, best line I see currently 14.5 minus 118 on BetMGM. Love that play. We might give that out in the DFS pass as an official play, Rich, just in your honor here. So when Herbert inevitably runs for 14 yards instead of 15, you can tweet it, Rich.
I had one of those this year. I had on Thursday night, Jordan Love rushing. It was 15.5 and he had an exact 15-yard run. And then
Brutal.
kneel down.
I remember it was like 2 or 3 Super Bowls ago. I mean, the Chiefs are always in it, but a couple Super Bowls ago when the Chiefs were in it, and it was like 20 yards or something from Mahomes. And of course, you had the 3 kneel downs at the end, lose the prop. Those are brutal. But I like that play. So 2 quarterback rushing yardage ones here, under on Justin Fields in London, and then over on Justin Herbert. Last segment, Rich, let's talk Survivor.
Well, if you take a look at this, I tented my pants.
All right, so Kyle and I are going to pull together, Rich. We were so fortunate last week to avoid...
You dodged some bullets then.
We avoided the Cardinals. We avoided the Rams. We went with the Colts last week. Thank goodness. We are alive. The Survivor pool got cut in like 40% of people were out after last week, so it was a good week for us. We're going to take a layup this week. We have not used the Packers yet.
Oh. Yeah.
If Joe Flacco beats them twice, it wasn't meant to be for us. That's where we're at. Kyle's on vacation. We don't have a lot of hard-hitting analysis on this. It's just, man, they are 14-point favorites. They're coming out of the bye. You mentioned the linemen are healthy. If the Packers can't win this game, we've got some issues. So we're going with the Packers this week. They will be popular, but for good reason. Are you in any Survivor leagues?
No, I was in one, lost it with Cardinals. Actually, it was the way that happened. It's just like, it wasn't even like a bad beat one. It was just like, this is actually impressive.
I'm not
the way
even
you're
mad.
losing this game. I do one, and I implore this. I love to put this out there. I love when people ask me about Survivor. So I'm in another one that is, it's pick a loser. So
that's fun.
And I think this is the optimal way to play Survivor because you can't pick against the same team all the time. So if you want to burn your Titans, you gotta you can't just pick against the Titans every week. You can't pick against the Raiders. So I think it's the best way to play Survivor. So I always like to share that whenever I'm on shows and they ask you about Survivor. If you're in a Survivor, pitch this to your friends and gamers that play it. But it's a way more funner way to play because whenever you get in the middle of the season, it's just everyone picking against the same teams. Where it forces you to pick some spots against some good teams too, which is very unique.
Yeah, that is unique, man. So the Titans are an incredible team in that format. The Giants, all these teams that are going to lose. That's an interesting strategy. I've never. But
you can only use them once. You only use them once. So
that's fun. Maybe we should flip the script next year. We'll do that. But yeah, for this week, we're going with the Packers. Please do not lose this game to Joe Flacco. All right, Rich, that is going to do it. Thank you so much, man, for coming on the show, hopping on today, sharing all this valuable insight. I think everybody's going to love it. I really appreciate it. Again, let everybody know where they can find your work. Any last thoughts on the slate? Anything good here before we head out for the weekend?
Yeah, sharpfootballanalysis.com. You can if there's someone that I didn't talk about that you would have loved my thoughts on, I wrote about them. And I put some nuggets on them. So just go check out the worksheet if you get a chance. I do that every week. And then, like I said, come the weekend on Saturday mornings, I share my entire DFS player pool that I'm playing myself. So if you're interested in that, if you didn't get enough of that from me on this show, those will be up too this week.
Yes, please check out Rich's work. It is unbelievable, some of the best in the space. So please check that out. For Kyle, who's currently sipping Surfsides by the pool, for Rich, for myself, good luck this weekend. We'll see you guys next week on Tuesday. Go win all the money.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
From building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.